Welcome. Welcome to week 5 of the Me and White Supremacy virtual pilgrimage. I'm Reverend John Borthwick, and I'm the minister at St. Andrew's in Guelph, and I'm encouraging my congregation to accompany me as I journey through the book Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. Week 5. Wow. The question this week is, what is white superiority? And again, I'll refer to the book to offer the definition. White superiority stems directly from white supremacy's belief that people with white or white passing skin are better than and therefore deserve to dominate over people with brown or black skin. And the most extreme manifestations of this are the KKK, neo-Nazis, and the ideology behind right-wing nationalism. What is amazing about this journey so far is how Layla, through her writing, is helping me personally to uncover the ways in which I'm still lacking, in which I'm still working on. She does it in such a way that causes your brain, essentially, or your thinking, your way of being, to be disrupted. And I think that's the beauty of this book, and perhaps the deep meaning of this transformational journey that I'm embarking on through this pilgrimage. I was talking to somebody else about the book recently, and their initial response was, "Hey, I thought like I was doing pretty good, but I'm only a few chapters in, and I'm realizing, oh my goodness, there's just still so much more work to do." Today, around white superiority, Layla shares an email that she received, a vicious, violent, disgusting email that came from somebody who called her many, many names and spoke in a way that was just vicious and was really, truly the extreme of this idea of white superiority or white supremacy. And within that, I think her intention was, and certainly very much worked, to take you to the furthest extreme, and then pulled it back and said, but everything this person just said, all the language they used, the names they called her, these are things that are somehow embedded in the white, privileged person. And so, for myself, that certainly has taken me on a bit of a disruptive journey this morning. In the context of the recording of this video this week, we as a nation are also experiencing that profound grief and loss and trauma and disgust and outrage around the discovery of 215 Indigenous children who were buried and cast aside, hidden away at a Kamloops residential school. We're also very much aware that there are probably many, many other bodies unmarked across this country of Indigenous children. We're also aware as a country of the continued calls for action around murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. And when I've engaged with some of the work around anti-racism and read materials from a variety of different authors in this regard, this particular topic of white superiority, about the valuing of a white body over a BIPOC body, is profoundly connected to these horrible, horrible stories we hear. Now, I'm continually called out by Layla and others as a person who bears my whiteness, who has privilege and resources, to not make this turn this into just a sense of giving up or a sense of shame and guilt that I'm supposed to put out there into the world, but is supposed to be transformed into more action, to do the work, to try and make a difference, to make a change, to call this stuff out and call the world to action in whatever world I circle in, or whatever world you circle in. But what's disrupting my very being right now, and maybe many others who are white or pass for white, is the possibility that within my brain, and Layla speaks to this, within my being, with the bias that is within me, how I was raised, or how I've learned from the world, what I was taught, has told me that white is somehow more valuable. White is better. That somehow BIPOC is not as important or valuable. And being connected to a church community and a Christian community, I'm very aware, and she mentions it in the book, of the ways in which white, Christianizers, colonizers, settlers came to communities across the globe to do mission work, just like residential schools, just like missionary work within indigenous communities, or missionary work that went across the globe to the African continent, or anywhere it went. And the ways in which that was done, with the idea that these people were not somehow as valuable as white people, that these people weren't as civilized as white people, that they somehow needed something else to be better, or maybe to be worth something. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to process as we continue to come out of this conversation during Indigenous History Month, and the continued calls to action around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. The last word that Layla says in this chapter, which really cried out to me, and I'll read it specifically from the book. She says, "Don't hide from this. This is the crux of white supremacy. Own it. Don't hide from this." Maybe that's my call to action for today. Don't hide from this. Around white superiority. Own it. But as Layla always says in this book often, but continue to do what is right and not what is easy. Thank you.